So the Republicans take power. All right. George Washington, first president of the United States. And as you guys remember, he served 2 terms and didn't want to serve anymore. He was out of politics. He didn't want any dealings with foreign policy. He didn't want to deal with any foreign affairs, and he just wanted to stay neutral. So he wanted to retire. So he goes back to his plantation and enjoys the high life. John Adams is the second president of the United States. While he was in office, they were building the White House mansion in Washington, D.C., and his wife, Abigail Adams, declared it to be the dirtiest hole. She didn't like it there. It was a swampland. She was unhappy with the place. In 1800, it was time for John Adams to run for a second term. In the 1800 election, it was John Adams and his running mate, Alexander Hamilton. They were the Federalists. They support big government. They were the wealthy class. They supported manufacturing, and they supported Britain. Running against them were the Democratic Republicans. This was Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. Something very unique happened during this election. The 2 Democratic Republican candidates, Jefferson and Burr, ended up in a tie with 73 votes each by the Electoral College. The tiebreaker was to send it to the House of Representatives. At the House of Representatives, Alexander Hamilton, who didn't want either of them to be president, felt that Aaron Burr was the more dangerous of the 2, and so persuaded the people of the House to vote for Jefferson. Jefferson ends up being the 3rd president of the United States of America. It would be 4 years later that Burr challenged Alexander Hamilton to a duel. And so both of them went out into a field and they had pistols. They took their paces, and some would say that Alexander Hamilton did not want to be a part of this duel. He didn't want to harm anybody. He fired into a tree. Aaron Burr, on the other hand, fired one right into Alexander Hamilton, and he would die of his wounds later on. Here's what that looks like. You, sir, are a filthy man and deserve to die. We will duel. Oh, we're gonna duel. As the President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson wanted to reach out to the Federalist Party to be bipartisan. Bipartisan means that both parties are taken care of, and so there's a give and take or a compromise usually in the different laws that are passed and voted on. Jefferson wanted to be very wise with government spending. He was going to try to lower the national debt. Being a Democratic Republican, of course, he wanted to support states' rights and make sure that the states were able to enforce their own laws and not have the federal government oversee them. He followed a French philosophy called laissez-faire. Laissez-faire means let the people do what they want. So he really wanted the people to be in charge of themselves. And again, this really goes with the Democratic-Republican philosophy of limited government. Jefferson really wanted to lower the national debt. In order to do this, he went out and got his friend James Madison and Albert Gallatin, who was really good with money, to be a part of his cabinet. They set out to really reduce the size of the Army and the Navy. And so they cut spending and they shrank the Navy from 25 ships to 7 ships. Within a few years, the national debt was reduced significantly. Before Jefferson had taken office, John Adams wanted to ensure that the Supreme Court was led by the Federalists. Because of the Judiciary Act, the president gets to choose the Supreme Court justices. These judges chosen by John Adams were called the Midnight Judges, because he had until midnight to choose these justices. When Adams had left office, some of those appointments had not yet been turned in. They didn't have email or anything like that. They actually had to deliver the appointment. And so what Jefferson did is told Madison to go ahead and hold on to those and just wait. And that would kill the appointments that John Adams made. This, of course, upset some of the Federalists, but Chief Justice John Marshall declared that the Constitution didn't really say anything on this issue. So he was able to do it. Something really important to note is what John Marshall declared during the judicial review. Number 1, the Constitution is to be the supreme court of the land. Number 2, when any law comes in conflict with the Constitution takes precedent. And number 3, the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, has a duty to uphold the Constitution. All right, that's all we have for right now. In the next chapter, we're going to see how U.S. gets a bunch of land for really cheap from France. Peace them out. John Adams is the second president of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands.